News stories were coming in about this strange virus in Wuhan, China. It was weeks before we saw the first cases in the US. As the numbers went up each day, my curiosity got the best of me, and I started plotting the curves. Here's stories from real people all over the world and how they've responded. I'm Sally Hendrick, founder of Shout Your Cause, and this is COVID-19, The World Responds.
Thank you for having me, Sally. My name is Donna Brown, and I'm a business and branding synergist. And I work with visionaries and leaders to create businesses that are supportive of their purpose and mission. And these are very interesting times. And I'm based in Italy, and I'm based in Milan, which is a hotspot. Mm-hmm. It is the hotspot in Italy at this moment in time. So that kind of tells you where I am. I've been here for a very, very long time. Yeah.
How long have you lived in Milan?
I've lived in Italy about 38 years.
Wow, I didn't know that long.
Yeah, I came as a youngin'.
Yeah.
And stayed. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So what's the word on the street when you go out? Can you go out, and what are you doing on a daily basis?
So, as somebody who lives alone now, my life in many ways hasn't changed a lot, but of course the changes are significant, right? Even if there are very few of them. Mm-hmm. We're not at the beginning there was, you could, like go for walks and get physical exercise. And they've basically said no to that. You're not supposed to if you have a dog, you can take out your dog and you can go to the grocery store or the pharmacy. And other than that, they want you home. So it's pretty tight. And they do give fines, and they can take, make criminal charges for those who go out knowing that they're ill and go out anyways. So it's very, they're taking that very seriously here. So things are incredibly quiet. But then there's that weird dichotomy that everybody, we know that it's like this. I mean, people know what it's like in New York as well. So we're all safe in our homes, and our homes generally, for most people, not for everyone, but for most people, are places that represent safety. And so we're in a comfortable environment, or at least an environment that we're used to. And, but the front lines must be something like we've never, seen before. And those people are living, all the healthcare workers are living, desperate times. I've seen the things in the States in New York about the PPE that the healthcare workers don't have, more
right.
than do have. And, we had the same issue at the beginning. It was very similar. Mm-hmm. I don't think people were wearing plastic bags, but they had to work 12-hour shifts with no breaks at all, because they didn't have a change of clothing for them to go back in. So very, very stressful. It's, the numbers here are high. I mean, the States has surpassed us, but the States is also 5 times larger than Italy. So mm-hmm. in some way that stands to reason, right?
So are the cases and the deaths mostly coming from your area? You're in the Lombardy region, which also includes Parma and Bologna and Milan.
It doesn't include Bologna.
It doesn't
include Parma either. So not Parma either.
So, what about Modena?
No, that's Emilia. You're in Emilia, Reggio
Emilia. I'm sorry.
Wrong region. That's further down.
That's further down. Okay.
The 3 cities here that are the most stricken are Milan, Bergamo, and Brescia, which are all, quite close to each other.
Okay.
And those 2 cities are quite close together. There are not that many kilometers between the 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And for a while they just sort of, Milan, it started with Milan, of course, because it's a big, hub. It's a huge hub, in the same way New York's a huge hub. And that's why it just sort of concentrated itself there. And also it's a very large city. So it stands to reason that it had also a lot of chance to sort of gain a foothold. And Bergamo and Brescia are also, took over. There's also a very important airport in Bergamo as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And what about the rest of the country?
It's spread out. It's spread out. There's something everywhere, which is kind of strange. Like, if since people are not supposed to be driving around and seeing each other or whatever, it's, there isn't a region that doesn't have somebody, but we represent probably 70% of the cases, I would say.
So you're like our New York right now.
Yeah.
And the rest of the country has pockets. And so I've talked to some other friends that I have, because, I've been to Italy many times, and probably 10, 12 times over the years, and spent a lot of time there, especially in the Tuscany region, and then also in Sicilia, in Sicily.
Sicilia is beautiful.
Yes.
So I lived in Tuscany for a long time, and I had a farm there for a long time.
Nice. But I've been talking with them, and they are also heeding the warnings from the government to do what they're supposed to do, and they're staying at home. The kids are at home during school. And so as far as is it an official lockdown for the entire country, including Sicily?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything.
That's what I thought, because they said that they were also heeding all of that, and that they had seen cases popping up in their areas. And so hopefully, because they are on lockdown everywhere, you won't have any more hot spots to rise up. But with that said, are there some other areas that seem to be on the rise in Italy?
I'm not entirely sure. I could actually probably tell you really quickly. I'll just double check here. What I do want to say something though, and I think this is very much worth keeping in mind. The people who, I'm just going to look at the map here. It stands to reason that the cities, it's easier in cities, right, for things to gather. So of course, Turin has quite a few, Naples has Rome has quite a few. So if you look at where they are, they tend to be in places that have, a denser population, denser population. Mm-hmm. But what is concerning, and I think this is, as I said, worthy of note for everyone, is that unfortunately, the South is definitely not as affluent as the North, right? And this is pretty much typical of most countries, right? People who have been at home and not being paid and not having access to unemployment insurance as of yet, and not, sort of not a lot of help, the tensions are getting very high about the lack of funds to buy food. I mean, and so they're policing quite heavily, and they're starting to police quite heavily in places in the South, just because maybe also for the characteristics of the city itself, and that each city has its own sort of qualities and areas. I was going to say neighborhoods. I tried to say them both together. But that's, that are maybe slightly, rougher. And these people are reacting with anger at their situation. And, anger probably driven through fear, right? They're afraid, and therefore they're angry, and therefore they're acting out and trying to go to a grocery store and not pay and still get food. Now, Italy has brought out, for the first time that I know of, I mean, it might have happened, or it would probably happen during wartime, right? To have like coupons or rations or something. But now which is one thing, but now this is the first time I've ever heard of them having food coupons, and they're beginning to do that, because there are people who have no access to food at this point. They have no income, and where are they going to, how are they going to procure that income? Either they were paid in black money, sort of off the books, or they were, seasonal or working by the hour, with no real benefits. So, and this represents a lot of people, and that whole sort of population is much more at risk, right? There are a lot of, let's say, people who come and clean your house quite often will just, come once a week. So you're not actually hiring them, you're paying them by the hour. But once that work's gone, what are they going to do? What do they eat? What are they going to do, right? Mm-hmm. And here, I think they're not, I think you cannot be evicted, if I've read correctly. It doesn't seem that you can be evicted for non-payment of rent at this time. But again, it increased debt load on a population that doesn't have any margins, right? That doesn't have any access to credit, that, you know, and this puts people in a much more fragile position.
So besides the food coupons, has Italy released anything like the US has with the stimulus package that was just passed the other day?
In different measures, but yes, I mean, right at the beginning, they put off all different kinds of things, like I forget what cassa integrazione is in English. When workers, they're not laid off, but they're sort of, it's not unpaid leave.
Like
It's
furlough?
called, yeah, something like that.
Furlough?
I should look that up. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Just, I don't know.
I get it. I get
But
it. When there are words that just
so,
don't translate exactly and you're not really sure
well,
how to.
it's just because I never have to talk about it in English, so it never occurs to me. They have, you know, they're having trouble getting through. They're having trouble getting through to the authorities. Everything. It's basically an unemployment insurance benefit. It's a redundancy payment or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's very hard to get through to the authorities to sort of get those things set up. So of course the watershed of that is these people are not receiving what they should receive. Taxes were postponed, VAT, sort of the value-added taxes, right? Those who are British will know what VAT is. But value-added tax, which would be your sales tax or provincial tax or state tax or whatever those government taxes you guys have, that you add on the sales tax that you guys have. Plus it's included in our prices. And not like in the States where it's added on afterwards. All those payments have been shifted as well, just because there's no real way of getting it done. You know, there are a lot of people, most accountants have had to close their offices and they're doing what they can from home, but they have to work with secure systems that are approved by the state. And so they have only certain kinds of servers and they don't, you know what I'm saying? They have all, and then they may not be able to social distance in the office. So things are really, really, really at a minimum. And so that whole part has been shut down. So they've brought forth a bunch of things. They're going to have to bring out more for sure. And our lockdown has been extended. It was supposed to end in 2 days. It's been extended 2 weeks, which surprised me because we have over 100,000 cases. So there's not a chance that it's going to, and we still have several thousand cases in new cases a day.
Yeah. I see that. I've been watching the data and very carefully and watching the curves. That my background is in analyzing that sort of thing. So I've really been on top of, you know, what's happening in Italy, what happened with South Korea, which seems to be like the model that we to depend on. And so when we start to see Italy is starting to have at least a downturn slightly in the new cases, but of course the deaths follow that in a pattern that comes a little bit later. So the worst thing that could happen would be for this to kick up too soon, you know, to like go back to work, go back to normal too soon, because then you're going to have new cases to pop up in these other areas that have not been hotspots at this point. So that's what's scary about all of that.
Well, in China, that started up again. In China, it started up again, right? They started getting new cases. They started getting an uptick. You know, so I think that really they're just, you know, before they announced a month, or it was just under a month really, but they locked down Lombardy first and then they locked down the whole country. And but I think they're doing that more for people's mental health and just saying, okay, just 2 more weeks. And it's like the personal trainer is trying to get you to do 3 more squats or 2 more bungee jumps or whatever it is. It's and they make you do that. So I think that's kind of the thing. And they're also trying to avoid a lot of conflict and a lot of things, but how is it? It's not possible. Anybody who has, you know, 2 brain cells to rub together knows it's not 2 weeks. Right. So the new date is April 12th. But that's really just for an update. You know, I think they can't say you have to stay here till June because people are just gonna, you know,
they're gonna go crazy.
they're going to go wonky right away and start asking all these questions that probably the government isn't even able to answer right now. Because I always remember that, you know, no matter who you think, what you think of whoever's in power and what you think of politics in general, these are people who are also facing something that there's no guidebook, there's no, there are no past references, there's nothing to compare, there's nothing.
I mean, they have to keep in mind that, you know, this can incite riots, this can
exactly, that's what I'm saying. In the South,
and lots of things that could be happening that would be terrible, and move into civil war. I mean, that's the scary part. That's like you're teetering on the edge here. You're having to walk the tightrope, if you will, to be able to navigate the economic piece of it, the medical piece of it, the emotional piece. All of those things have to be taken into consideration. I think that's the same type of approach that's been done here in the U.S. We've got, you know, different opinions on what people think of the different leaders and so on and so forth. And a lot of people are still throwing the politics around, but it's really not the time to be blaming this and blaming that and so on and so forth. Right now is the time to manage the crisis through the worst of it, get out on the other side, and then figure out, you know, people are going to look back and see what happened, learn from it, and try to have new policies going forward. But then there's going to be a lot of political infighting and all of that going on again. And we know that because we've got our elections coming up in the fall in the U.S. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, do you know people personally who are on the front lines? Or do you know anybody like who's elderly, who's having trouble? What kind of like, you know, who do you know personally that you can kind of give a little bit of a story of what's happening with them?
I can't really. It's sort of friends of friends, that kind of thing. You know, my family's not here, right? I'm Canadian, so and I'm divorced, so like that whole family is sort of, you know, not on my radar anymore.
Right.
It's not really. You know, my son in Italy is very interesting. I don't know if you know this, Sally, but the ambulances have paid help Monday to Friday day shift and everything. This is all of Italy, right? And I find this amazing. The rest of every other shift, every holiday, every sporting event, anytime you see them, they're all volunteers.
Really?
Yes. And my son was a volunteer first responder. So, and he's now in Paris, so he's not doing it right now. But, you know, they're working hard, and we have to remember that underneath all of this, people will fall and break their legs. Somebody will get appendicitis. Somebody is going to be giving birth. Somebody is, you know, has their chemo treatment to do, right? So there's all of that going on as well, right? Underneath that still, you know, needs looking after in some way.
We went on a hike last weekend, and it was muddy, and I was like, I've got to go slow. If I slip and fall, if I break my ankle,
this is not the time.
I am not going to the hospital. I'm just going to sit at home.
This is not the time.
And I did kind of slip a little bit, and I was like, you guys need to wait up for me. I know I'm slow back here, but I'm sorry. And it was just those of us living in the house, and people were, you know, kind of swinging out to the side when you would go past someone. But even that, I'm starting to hear is not going to be good enough, and that people really need to start to stay home. And if you're going to go out and do any walking, don't be going to any crowded parks or places where you can't get away from other people. And it's just, I mean, we're so behind you guys on timing regarding that, you know, but it feels like it's been ages, and I'm sure it does for you.
Yeah. So the schools closed in February. So the schools have been closed for 2 months now. And those were the first signs. And I was very perplexed as to why they would do 3 weeks of school closure and not do anything else for the general population, who are actually the ones contacting more people. If you think about it, schools, yes, they get their hotbeds. If one person gets a cold or the flu, everybody gets the cold or the flu or whatever. They get what's going around, but they don't interact with that many people outside of that environment, right? So it's kind of strange. And so it just really had a chance to get a foothold. I wish they had closed everything down much, much sooner, to be honest. But, and, South Korea it may be the model, you mentioned that, but they had a completely different system of tracking, of testing, and tracking contagion that nobody in the West is doing. There was one small Italian town that did it. There was a town of 3,000 people. They tested them. They tracked each person who was contagious, and they got rid of it. But it's hard to do that at scale, right? I mean, South Korea also has different governing.
The name of the town was VO or something like that, or
that was where it started.
Oh, where was the town where they did the 30?
I can't remember the name of it.
It's near Venice, though.
Yeah, I can't remember where it is.
Yeah.
And so it is possible, but you have to be hyper vigilant. And in the meantime, they also now have to stay isolated from the rest of the country. Otherwise, there was no point in doing that, right? I just feel that, South Korea has, different systems in place to look after, to sort of monitor this kind of thing. And in the West, we consider our freedom, we're a little bit petulant about giving up our freedom, a little bit like children in some ways, right? But, and, it's one question of, we have national health, so that's another godsend. In the midst of all of this, nobody's paying for this, right? I mean, nobody's paying for it. We'll pay for
you're paying for it, but not like
for our taxes. But I mean, each person doesn't have to walk in and, spend, $10,000 or something, or $30,000 to get themselves looked after. But, I think they just weren't prepared to do sort of mass testing once they found the hot spots. And so they didn't put that in place. And I really feel that, events have shown that I think that would have helped. But I don't think that we're, that organized. I don't think we were organized to do that.
So let's talk a little bit really quick about, what is your biggest fear? And then I want to go into what are your hopes about what's coming up.
I'm not afraid. So I don't know. I don't have fears. I mean, I'm really concerned I'm not afraid that I'm, really looking at countries like India thinking, oh my God, they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. And a friend of mine in Zimbabwe, who spent her life working for humanitarian causes and social responsibility, and had spent more than a decade working on epidemic control of HIV, is now, there are no ventilators in the country. I think there are like three, 2 or 3 for a whole country. So they've already had their second victim, and he was well known. He was, obviously a person that could have, but there wasn't a ventilator at his hospital. And so he died because there was no ventilator. So she's pulled together. It's amazing. It's like so amazing. They created an organization because she's been practicing, I guess, this for her whole life, right? She's gathered all of her experience and called out to a few people, and she has over 400 people, like medical engineers and universities and people doing, all the things so that they can build open source ventilators for the country. But so these countries, my heart goes out to them, my heart goes out to them terribly, because we're still really, really lucky, no matter how bad things are in Italy, and people are still losing their parents, and their husband, their wife, their parents, and some of their kids, because it does hit younger people. So don't think that. So there are people in their 20s who have died, people in their 30s and 40s. So it's not unknown. And I just, no matter how much I feel for them, these countries that almost seem defenseless to me, we are still in a position of privilege, strangely enough. I don't know.
So what about your hopes then?
My hopes. I have so many. Like, I feel that there's such the whole world has been given a hard stop, right? And we're just supposed to sit here and think about things a little bit here, right? There's a moment for reflection. So I love that companies in Italy who are very traditional, who have never, like, we are not a home working country. People have, it's like, no, 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 we don't do that. They pay for attendance.
Yeah.
Very old fashioned, paying for attendance.
Yeah.
And now to survive, they've had to, it's like, oh, well, I guess we do need to innovate. So I think that for like on that level, for like sort of structured corporations, that they're going to get rid of stuff that people don't need to do. Because I think there's a lot of like busy work that they get people to do to justify their salary. They'll realize that most of it wasn't necessary. They'll get down to what was necessary. They'll have to open up. That will stay home working because the government has given directions to consider home working at least until June, and that was way back in February when they started it, like in March, the beginning of March when they started it. So that for me is one thing that's super positive. The fact that we've all had to stop buying stuff because the store,
figure out the lifeboat strategy. Stuff. What do you really need in life?
Like, you know, the dollar store and Zara and, I mean, I don't want to call out any brands, but you know what I mean? This fast fashion and always buying something for your house, and I'll just treat myself to that. And I'll just, this constant buying, you know, it's kind of like, oh my God. I know that people, if they're not getting a salary, yes, they're worse off, but those who are still getting something, I've seen comments where they're saying, oh my God, I have so much more money because I'm not going out. I'm not ordering takeout. I'm not always going out for dinner. Right. I'm not, they're saving money on gas. Again, back to the smart working. There's these lines of commuters, you know what it's like in a big city. It's just crazy. People take 2 or 3 hours to get to work. All of that has disappeared. And I hope that it, you know, and it shows that there's a different way forward. I see those big office buildings becoming in some way obsolete as people realize that they're better off dispersed rather than gathered. I feel that the way we look at now, and this is one thing that I'm really, really big on. I'm really big on because it's been something I've been talking about for a while, but it's finally become current, is that fear-based marketing is the pits. And it needs to go away. And the way, because I feel it's terrible. It's just terrible when you think about it. Like you know what marketers that you get taught, show them their pain points, remind them of their pain points, right. Remind them why they feel terrible, remind them of, you know, and then show them what they really want, and then just stick yourself in between and put up and with a price tag, and everything will be okay. Yeah. And if you were to talk to somebody about a relationship and say, and I say this all the time, if I were to come to you and make you feel really badly about yourself, and then propose myself as the person to make you feel better, you would tell me that's a very dysfunctional relationship. And you would put an end to it if you were smart. Yeah. But in marketing, for some reason, it seemed like it's you know, so-called okay, because it does work, because people will do things out of fear. People will buy out of fear. They will. Right. People, and so there are all these statistics that shore up the fact that people do buy through fear. But is that ethical? Is it ethical? That's my question. If you say, oh, I really care about my clients, it's like, I don't know. It's like, if that is a component of your marketing, I doubt that. You're not doing the favor. So I've been talking about compassion-based marketing. Yeah. And this move to, it's like, it's not that the person doesn't have a problem. It's not that you're not there to help them with the solution. But if I see you, I hear you, and you sort of recognize, you sort of see them and hear them, and you make them feel like they're, you know, that you understand where they are. And then you say, if you want, I can help you with that. The words you use, the tone you use, the buttons you push are very, very different. And I've seen all kinds of people on social media taking down all the people who have online businesses, taking down their marketing efforts. You know, that was everything that was pre-programmed. Why? Because it's completely out of line with what's going on now. It's completely out of line and out of context. And exactly. But I turned all of my automations off. I have stopped and I have focused on this. And the crazy part is that I've got more clients now than I can handle. Because if you stop talking to people about fear, like really, it's just this, you know, and there are still people who are doing it, and there are still people who will be successful, and there will still people who respond to that. But I really feel that we're also being asked to decide who do you want to be? Like you've been like doing. And all of a sudden it's like, no, you have to stop. It's like, okay, big reevaluation moment. Who do I want to be? Like, who do I want to be? And how do I want to show up in the world? And when people say, oh, they want to make an impact and they care about others, it's like, okay, then treat them better from day one. Don't push that button. You don't need to. And you can become a refuge for your clients. You can become this point of reference that is solid, that is stable, that is welcoming, that is a safe place, right? And that's what people need. But people have always needed that. It's just more evident now.
Yes.
So that's my little soapbox.
Well, I love that. And thank you for saying it. And tell us a little bit, just real fast, about your business and what's happening right now, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So with my business, this is what I'm helping people to do, to shift how they approach their business and their business model. And it's really a question of, it's really beyond branding. It's going much deeper than normal branding would do, and really realigning themselves to the essence of themselves, the essence of their business, and the essence of their clients, the hearts of their clients. And I call them heart clients and not ideal clients, because I feel an ideal client is sort of this sort of abstract, box ticking exercise. And that's not really how we connect with people. We connect people with people heart to heart. So it's this big shift brings huge results, because I've always done it with my clients. They just didn't know I was doing it. Now I've turned it into a much more obvious process. I would just do it for them because I was a consultant. So I would do that work and I would just kind of give them the thing, and they would all be happy and go away and make tens of millions of dollars on the stuff, which is great and lovely and fun. But I really want people who want to be leaders to realize that you can build a business. You're always going to have, let's say, maybe funnels and automations and digital products and courses. You know what I mean? Like the structure of things may not change, but it's the motor that drives them that's very, very different. And so that's really what I'm working on now. And I'm doing something in the next couple of weeks to take people through a deeper process of that. I've done one small experience of that, but now I'm turning it into a more expanded version, because I really feel that this is, that's the other thing. I think people are looking to pivot, but they're looking to pivot with the same language and mentality that they had before, and it's not going to work. That's another thing I would like to tell people. It's like, when you're thinking of pivoting, the best thing you can do is take a breath and sort of, think about, give yourself a beat and sort of figure out, why you're pivoting and what's behind that pivot. And that pivot, if you come sort of, let's say, from the roots of the root of your business and the root of who you are, then that pivot will be sort of much more natural, and it will really just be like pruning off the things that are no longer appropriate and just staying right in that center and that core of what it is you're meant to be delivering and how you're meant to be delivering it. And that is so much easier than this kind of like almost like hamster-like activity that we've seen online.
That's a good analogy. I definitely feel that. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with me about what's going on in Italy, what you're seeing in the business world, this heart connection with heart clients. I love that aspect. I do feel like I myself am going through that journey as well, because this is for the Shout Your Cause effort that I started a while ago, but I just never really did a whole lot with it. And so now this is where this is going. It's not like a money maker, but it's like I don't know what it's going to become. You know what I mean? It's my moneymaker is my agency, but this part is the content and the connection that I have with people around the world and within our communities. It's been a way for me to connect directly with my local communities. I've always been more of a global marketer, and this is giving me a way to talk to my people who I grew up with and who I live around and all of that. And then also to expand out into the world and hopefully open up some eyeballs and, show some new perspectives of what's happening from all walks of life. So. Well, thank you.
But you'll see that there might be a way, though, that you'll see that these two roads paths converge at some point. I think there's an intersection. There's an intersection.
Yeah, there is. There's an intersection, and that's something that I teach in Facebook targeting anyway. So it's probably where that's going. So
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'd love to get an update later on, maybe if we can do that and see what's going on. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
All right.
Sally.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for listening today. Subscribe to this podcast to hear all our episodes. Go to shoutyourcause.com to our podcast page for information on our guests and notes from this show.